games. I'm a Twitch streamer named Orlanthi, and I often duo with Kiston Games. I'm about to compete in a Dark and Darker tournament hosted by So Bad Strange. It's a solo tournament, and we have 2 hours to reach as many kills as possible. If I die in a raid, the kills don't count towards my score. Let's do this, let's have fun.
Nine.
Alright, I can go over here and reload. Let's do. Alright, that's 6. Ah! Ah!
Okay. Okay. Bro, clip that shit, dude.
I am not some simple priest. I am the End Boss. Have at thee, swines of Dark and Darker. I spit on thee, and I defile your corpse. Dead. Let's not get away from this fucking rat. That's 3 more. They popped just below the lethal dosage of Adderall and started blitzkrieging me. Or it's just you. And heaven comes to cleanse you. And your boy. You know, I bring a message from the gods, sir. Do you seek to fight against fate itself? Manifest? Behold, the light has cleansed you. You're free now. You're free. Too late. Death descends for you, my friend. That is 1 point unbanked. This is the world's first Dark and Darker tournament.
All right, what's going on, Dungeon Delvers? I hope to see you for the December tournament. That is going to be a 0 to hero tournament, new characters only, with a large prize pool. And congrats to our winners, Orlanthi, JonahVeil, and TheEndBoss from last tournament. Now we're going to be talking about the pre-patch breakdowns. This is going to be everything that I've gathered from Discord, the interview with Pestily and OnePeg, as well as Reddit. It's going to be 90% fact and 10% hypothetical. So moving forward, we've just got a bit of an agenda here, talking about the different aspects of the patch. We've got the new gear breakdown, so the gear disparity is going to be less, which will give everybody a better chance to kill each other, as the gear gap is smaller than it once was. We're going to have 8 maps over the previous 4, along with some maps being rotated in and out. We also have the high roller discussion along with the anti, and what it is supposed to do, along with the exclusive high roller leaderboard, introduction to the crafting and mining system, the new race and pay to lose cosmetics, the new schools of magic, and the fact that all stats are finished with new ways to loot. So moving forward, we've got the tiers of gear. So in the previous system, we had only one lobby system, and within that, all gear was dropped from common, gray, rare, epic, legendary, all the way to unique, and most of this could be obtained from chests or breakables. In the new system, we will have stats starting at the new uncommon tier of gear, which is green, and the rare gear, which is blue. They will now have 1 and 2 stats respectively, whereas before it either didn't exist or had 0 stats. So this will help players, as uncommon will be easier to find along with rare, and these stats will help boost to lessen the gear disparity, right? That gear gap is closing between rare and, say, epic. Now, legendary gear can be obtained from bosses mostly within even the normal lobby, whereas the high roller lobby, the unique best in slot gear will be exclusive to this new system. It will have a 100 to 150 gold ante per player, and because the gold is cut in half now, it'll be harder to get into that in order to get the better gear. So just in general, there should be less gold and less high tier gear within the economy. And because the gear gap is less, we should have fairer fights on our hand more often. Moving forward, we've got the new maps. So this old map, which we saw for the first time last playtest, this sort of open, big circular area, which really gave ranged a sort of meta feel to it, has been taken out of the rotation, and new maps will be replacing that with the B2 crypt. And then we also can see at the bottom, we've got some variations on the map, so we don't know which ones we're going to be getting, but the devs have been playing with moving the rooms around and connecting them in different ways with secret passages, so I'm personally excited to see what they do with that. And then we also have all 4 of those maps. We're talking about B2 crypt and B3 infernos will be fully modified for the high roller system. They're going to have new harder monsters, and the bosses will be harder with different affixes. Additionally, there will be 25% larger maps in play this time. So there will be more monster packs, denser, with less PvP. That way more people can escape and go to Inferno because the maps themselves will be larger. So they're trying to figure out a good spread here between the upcoming B1 map, which will have 33 players, and then the current B2 crypt, which will have 16. So they're trying to find a good balance and allow more people to survive. So we just talked about that a little bit, but the high roller lobby, you know, you're going to go in there. It's going to not always be full, right? Because of the anti-system and the fact that you're only going to have 2 or 3 sets worth of gear available to be placed in your stash. There is going to be some groups that are going to live in high roller, that way they can get on the leaderboard and try for that good gear, but the monsters and bosses will be harder, so theoretically more gear, there should be more gear churn, which is when gear is left in the lobby or gear isn't found to begin with. So overall, like I said earlier, there should just be less high tier gear in circulation. And there should also be less wanton murder, which is what they were going for. They want new players to have a chance to learn. So by moving the best gear in the game and taking the leaderboard system and placing it in high roller exclusively, this should cut down on the amount of sheer murders that we saw over the last 2 or 3 playtests, right? We had numbers up and over 2,000. And so I think there will just be less killing because players will be more interested in going to the high roller lobbies, or at least that elite kind of 10% sweaties will be hanging out more in the high roller instead of the normal lobbies. So overall, there should be an increased survival rate and the gear gap should be less. So we should just have fair gameplay across the board. And hopefully also more players going down to Inferno. We also have the introduction of the crafting and mining system. So you'll be able to mine ore or find ore inside of the dungeon, and then you'll use that in town to craft either new gear or cosmetics, and then you'll be able to profit from this new system. And overall, they're going to be adding to this all the way up till release, right? They want to get an in-depth crafting system, and they also want to get an in-depth merchant and quest system. So the gear gap should be even less as players start to craft this playtest, and then in the future they'll be able to do quests and upgrade their merchants. So you should just get more and more fair fights as the game progresses. But this is going to be the first introduction to this system, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more in the cosmetic portion. So the cosmetic portion, this is mostly theoretical because we don't know what we're going to be getting. We know they said that we're going to be getting a new race. I surmise it's going to be elf because it's got the most similar hitbox to human and shouldn't be that much of a difference. Hopefully these new races will come with small stat adjustments, right? We'll probably see elf rangers, you know, maybe high elf mages and clerics, and then either way, it'll be fun to see what they can come up with, and I'm sure in the future we'll get dwarf and others. And then the new cosmetics, so up here on the top left, we've got the Chris Dagger. These are all taken from Dark and Darker, from the press kit. And so we've got these kind of fun drip, right? We got these new gold elements and these kind of cooler looking items, and they said they want it to be sort of a pay to lose system, so I have to assume that the drippier you look, the more obvious you're going to be, you know, in the shadows, and other players are going to go for you more often. So it's going to be kind of a more like a clout system, right? You wear these cosmetics to look cool, but you're also risking dying because you're going to be seen through the shadows a lot easier compared to the sort of ragged peasant gear that most players have been rolling around with. So this also might be tied to the crafting system. You might craft the new cosmetics, or they mentioned that you might be able to buy them with veteran adventurer points, which would be interesting, right? We'd have a different currency that you get for surviving, and then you can use that to buy yourself some clout. And this will be expanded in the future, of course, as well. I'm sure we'll see titles and achievements and all that good stuff. Pressing forward, we've got the new schools of magic. They mentioned lightning and ice. And so we're going to see a more fleshed out version of the wizard as well as the cleric. And I'm not sure what they're going to do for the cleric, but overall we're going to have the introduction of the new stats, and all stats will be complete. So we will have more spells in use, and a lot of those stats that were tied to spells, such as spell capacity, wisdom, and knowledge, will all be fleshed out. And this is going to evolve over time as well. Plus they want to introduce new classes like Druid and Artificer, so I'm sure we're going to see more and more spells over time, as well as spell scrolls, which will be one-time use items that probably any class can use. That way we'll have more spells and more kind of random effects inside of the dungeon. So there will be new schools of magic, and wizard and cleric should be getting a buff. So like I mentioned, all stats are complete. So we're now going to have will fully implemented, which means the blessing and curses, right, the buffs and debuffs from classes will last longer if you stack that will stat. So the cleric buffs and the wizard debuffs, like being caught on fire or, you know, lightning or slow from an ice, whatever we get, those will all be affected by will now compared to the past. Additionally, we've got this backpack system coming to light where we'll be able to fully loot someone's backpack, and then put it within our backpack. So this should make it easier in the stash to have more items. And then we're also getting a gold chest, right? So you put the gold in gold pouches, and then you'll put the pouches in the chest. And then you'll also be able to put items in backpacks. So overall, the stash should be getting a bit of a rework, and it should look a bit similar to Tarkov. And we'll have more room to progress and more items to go for, right, to stack bank. Additionally, resourcefulness will be finished, so we should have more slots within the backpack in order to obtain more loot from the dungeon. I'm not sure if we're getting a weight system, but I expect in the future there will be a weight, so you'll see those barbarian and fighter mules carrying all the loot out of the dungeon. We've also got the completion of the knowledge stat, so there'll be a lot more interaction with that between, you know, knowledge and magic for spellcasting speeds, as well as magical interaction, which should be something like fountains of speed and healing and whatnot. And so overall, everything is just going to be complete moving forward, and it's going to be looking like a really good playtest. I kind of hope they keep up this sort of 2-month gap so they can come out with more and more content, right? More bosses, etc., and finish out the classes and quest system and flesh the game out as we head toward early access. Anyway, I also hope theoretically that we move from the candy corn system to the candy cane system, and we go from Halloween decorations to festive winter decorations. Can't wait to see you all in this next wipe, and I will catch you for the next one.